Hello and welcome to a rotation video. We haven't done one of these for about a week now, since mostly I was covering the unlimited stuff, since rotations stagnated a little bit. But I thought, why not kick right into gear and get this going right now, since we've got some little ideas popping up here and there that looked okay to cover. So, of course, this is a DragonCraft deck. It runs most of the simple DragonCraft engine that you'd be used to seeing, most of which is pretty common. Doting Dragoneer is run in some decks now, and so is Full Metal Dragoon. Mostly those two typically get run together, I've noticed a lot, which is very common. This one's also running a Warring Flame, since it is basically a free Evo, and the Clash is just too good when it's that case. Also, we're running a couple of Odin, and we're running Forte, since Forte is actually still a half decent card, for some storm damage, and definitely this deck was one that piqued my interest to play, so I thought, why not give it a fair go? So we're going to get right into this and take a look. So for our first match here, we're going up against Havencraft.
Shall we cross swords?
Of course, we get to go second, which definitely isn't in this sort of deck's favour. But we've got a very good starting hand. All 1-drops makes turn 1 through 2 very easy. Also, going up against Haven, who typically plays on the slower side of a deck, should be okay. So our turn 1 Goblin play, probably into the turn 2 Full Metal. Since I can't really see any other good play to go with, other than maybe dropping, of course, the white, but I'd rather get that out next turn. And I doubt they're playing many Amulet countdowns, although that does lead me to believe they might be playing a few. So here's a really good chance to start flooding the board, especially with the buffs we're getting. So they did do an alright job of removing those couple of cards, but since they didn't remove everything, I'm still pretty safe here, and we're going to be able to flood the board again. This is what I thought was interesting about this deck. The potential it had to flood the board was very interesting, and when you get them to, of course, go off continually, it does make things much more enjoyable. So with just 11 health, they're going to have a very rough time recovering, especially with the deck that looks like they're playing. But they're going to at least do a fairly good job. We can very easily wipe this board out. I probably could make this play a little better. Instead of going for the White Frost there, I could have went for a Disdainful Rend and played my 2-3 and had an extra little bit of damage ready, but that didn't end up being too big a concern. It just would have been that little bit sweeter. But they, of course, ended up conceding anyway, which was a little interesting. Not that it would have made too much difference, since we had some pretty decent coming up cards. And now for the next match, we're going up against Blood. Blood in rotation is typically Mecha Blood. There is still a few Dark Beast Bat lists floating around in the rotation meta, so that doesn't surprise me at all if we would see one of those, but I would say they lean towards Mecha Blood at least a reasonable percentage. Although, I did see Dark Beast Bat coming up pretty well in some tournaments, so no surprise there, if that definitely pops up. And Vera is not really a telltale sign for either or at this point, although they're playing it early, which means they are going for a more aggressive approach right now. Going up against Dragon though, it's not unheard of either. Unleashed Nightmare also doesn't tell me much, as that can be run in both decks very easily. So we're looking at a fairly decent board again. That's what I love, like I mentioned in the last match, was that flooding the board becomes very easy and it's very straightforward. The only real problem here is, how do we handle the rest of this? Doting Dragoneer plus the Evo here actually makes up for our board presence and gets some decent buffs. This is actually one of my favourite combinations. This is why they actually work so well together. Because for the single Evo cost, you can actually get out 4 followers. So the potential there on turn 4 can be really insane. Blazing Sapphire. So digging for more draw. This definitely leads me to think it might be a Mecha Blood. Then they play stuff like Gift of Bloodkin, and then I think, maybe it's a Dark Feast Battlist. Definitely harder to tell right now because they haven't played anything really telltale-y as far as it goes. They do typically tell me what they're going to play when they, of course, are playing out certain cards. And now I don't need to do too much more. We don't need much damage at all. And since they're burning through these Razory Claws, it's definitely not looking good for them. And obviously it didn't look too good at all when you can't really recover from that. This deck definitely surprised me by how fast it could close out some games. We do have another dragon list that will be coming up in a future video that is similar to this but different at the same time, focusing more on the Disdain package, so that will be another interesting video for you guys to check out. But overall, I would definitely say this deck has potential, and I think with some more cards it could definitely become something that would be a interesting focus, making a more evolved focused dragon deck. So if you guys did enjoy this video, hit the like button and subscribe for more content. You'll find the deck list in the description below. Until next time guys, see ya.